How did this Newcastle performance come in one of their biggest games of the season? Newcastle secured Champions League football for the second time in 3 years. But just as Eddie Howe would do, we have to ask, why did Newcastle struggle so badly against Everton? I'll be analysing the tactical mistake that almost cost Newcastle Champions League football, the key decision by Eddie Howe that could change the future of one of Newcastle's top performers, and the real impact of Champions League qualification for Newcastle United. Now, the players definitely felt the pressure of the game, but Eddie Howe made a key tactical mistake that cost Newcastle the 3 points. Eddie Howe had a decision to make. Did he stick with the 5-4-1 that had worked in previous games, or did he revert back to the 4-3-3 at home, a bit more attacking against this Everton side? And to prove this isn't me just reacting to a loss, I made this exact comment after my last video about whether he should be sticking with that 5-4-1 or changing back to the 4-3-3 with Murphy at right wing. Eddie Howe decided to stick with the 5-4-1 lineup, but the problem wasn't the 3 centre-backs. It was what they did on the ball in the attacking areas. Everton had been revitalised under David Moyes, and there was a couple of clever little tweaks that he made tactically to nullify Newcastle on the ball. And instead of setting up in that 4-4-1-1 shape that they have on the ball, they set up with a sort of triangle shape, something that restricts the central spaces and direct passing lanes into Bruno Guimaraes and Sandro Tonali. They had the highest striker pressing the centre-backs and forcing the ball out wide, and either one of Beto, Alcaraz or Njai would sit on Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes. But as Botman passes the ball out to Dan Burn, you can see the second clever tactical tweak that David Moyes made. They allowed Dan Burn to progress into the wide area. They had the back 4 set in shape with Gay and Garner just ahead of them. But what they did with Tino Livramento was the important part. Tino Livramento has been inverting in from that left wing back role into central areas, just a bit of a distraction positionally for the opposition, but creating lovely little underlapping and overlapping runs into the wide areas. But what they did was they allowed Jack Harrison, playing in that right midfield, right wing role, to track Tino Livramento and man mark him wherever he went. And you can see the impact of this as Dan Burn progresses with the ball. Newcastle love to outnumber the opposition in wide areas, create little underlapping, overlapping opportunities, crossing situations, but Everton outnumber Newcastle in the wide area. But still, Dan Burn is able to slip Anthony Gordon in, and he gets to the byline and he puts a cross in. But this is the second problem in Newcastle on the ball. When they did get to these wide areas and did put a cross in, look at the amount of options in the box. Only Harvey Barnes against the 3 central defenders, and Isak should be busting a gut to get into the box. Jacob Murphy as the opposite wing back should already be in a higher position, ready to attack the box, but it just didn't have that intensity in the attacking play, that ability to outnumber the opposition in different areas, and Everton were comfortable for the majority of this game off the ball. And look at Newcastle's average positions from the game. Can you see what I see? With this 5-4-1 formation, Barnes tucking in centrally, Gordon out wide, Jacob Murphy out wide, there's no one in that half space. No one that can pick up the ball in that central area, in the right or left side channel, pull the opposition out of their structure and cause problems for Everton. And that was a problem throughout the whole game. They were unable to really have any threat on goal. And if you take out set pieces, the corners, the free kicks, chances, they had an XG of 0.15 in that first half. Only 3 shots on goal, 2 on target, and this is the kind of problems that this 5-4-1 formation would have caused against a deep Everton block. Now, we all know the formation had to change in the second half, but Eddie Howe had a big decision to make. Who would he take off? And the decision he made might have consequences for the summer transfer window and the season ahead. Now, usually when Eddie Howe changes from that 5-4-1 to a 4-3-3, he takes off either one of the centre-backs or either Harvey Barnes or Jacob Murphy. But he did something different. He took off Anthony Gordon. Every time Anthony Gordon has returned from a suspension, a little injury niggle, or just a rest after a cup competition, he's jumped straight back into the left wing spot. And rightly so for the majority of the season. He had 11 goals, 15 assists last season in the Premier League, and the hope is that he could recapture that form at some point in the season. But ever since that red card against Brighton in the cup competition, Harvey Barnes has filled in impressively in that left wing spot, linking up with Tino Livramento, building a lovely little partnership where they know how to underlap and overlap, and they've created havoc since being partnered with each other. And for the first time since returning to the starting 11, Eddie Howe took him off. Before Harvey Barnes, before Jacob Murphy, pushed Harvey Barnes back to the left wing position that he knows best, and he took him off at half time against his boyhood club, the club that we bought him from. It's a massive statement from Eddie Howe, whether he meant it intentionally, unintentionally, just trying to win a game. It's a big call to make, and he made the right one, because Gordon's been out of form. But he turns 24 in February. He's about to enter his peak years in terms of that left wing position and refining his game. He had a great season last season, so Newcastle have come to a crossroads. What do they do with that left wing position coming up this summer? Do they keep both of them for the European campaign that's coming up next season? Or do they sell either one of them to build funds and rebuild the squad in the summer? Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'm not going to give my opinion because I'm still undecided, but let me know what you think down in the comments. But even with the poor result, it was good old Man United that decided to turn up against Aston Villa at home in their final game of the season, which helped secure Newcastle Champions League football for next season. But what is the real impact of Champions League football for Newcastle United? And the first benefit is keeping the star players. Newcastle are in a position of power. They do not have to sell. Whether they choose to sell to accelerate the development of this club is another decision that they have to make. But they don't have to sell the likes of Isak, Bruno, Tonali, Gordon, Botman. They want to stay. They want to play Champions League football. They can feel what's building. And you can see the relief at that final whistle when they found out they were playing Champions League football, that they can all stay if they choose to. And the second benefit is attracting new players. They can now offer Champions League football, what every player craves, to whoever they're chasing this summer. It's a massive pull alongside the fan base, the club, Eddie Howe, who's able to coach players into better players. And you can see that PSR has handcuffed Newcastle for the past 3 transfer windows without any major signing of note. And this is a big summer. We all know we need a right winger, centre back, a backup striker to Isak, a new goalkeeper even, and even potentially a backup centre midfielder if we're likely to sell Sean Longstaff and or Joe Willock. And so this additional revenue from Champions League and the sort of prestige we get from it is massive this summer. And speaking of money, Newcastle are now able to increase their revenue from Champions League income. And it comes at the perfect time in this new Champions League format. Every club that qualifies for the Champions League earns an automatic £15.7 million. That's even if we lose every single league game. But I've looked even further than that. The data of the revenue made by each club from that group phase, whether they were eliminated or went through to the final rounds. And I've taken it from Swiss Ramble, and you can see even Stuttgart, Dynamo Zagreb, who were eliminated in that league phase, made around 40 million euros. And then when you look at maybe what we're aiming for, at least the knockout round unseeded, that ranged from anywhere from 50 million euros to 77 million euros by Man City. Huge money just for trying to get through to the next phase, which I think Newcastle can do next season. And that doesn't even take into account sponsorships. Think about the little boost we're going to get from Adidas for making the Champions League, plus all the new sponsors we can now attract from being a part of this elite competition. And you can see the impact of Champions League football in the revenues from the past 2 year of accounts. In the 2023 year of accounts, the revenue was 250 million, and with the Champions League year in the most recent year of accounts, it jumped up to 320 million. It's insane the impact of Champions League football, especially if we're doing it year on year, but this could be the start of something special. This is a vital moment in Newcastle's history. Winning a trophy, securing Champions League football, the owners, manager, staff, players, fans, all connected. We have to take advantage of this cycle. There will be a down cycle after this one. Players leaving, players getting older, squad changes, manager changes. But this cycle and this year getting Champions League football is massive. It allows the rebuild that we need. And if you agree, drop a like, subscribe. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'll link another video up here for you to watch next. And I'll see you on the next episode of A Game of Two Halves.